Welcome to Richard and Greg, a channel dedicated to discussion, debate and argument on a whole array of topics. Today we talk to Greg about four main issues and get his view on them. An update of the coronavirus pandemic, Hong Kong, Tik Tok and the European Union. So let's go to that discussion. Welcome to Richard and Greg. It's Sunday, the 2nd of August, 2020, and the time in the UK is currently 17:45. That's GMT +1. And we're going to talk to Greg about four main subjects. Obviously, a quick update on the coronavirus, as that is headline news around the world. We'll also talk about Hong Kong, the fragility of the European Union, and TikTok, as there have been some developments there. So, Greg, good late afternoon. How are you? And far away.
I am alive and well and don't seem to have caught any of the pandemics to date, which I'm quite pleased about. The figures for COVID at the moment, we're approaching 20 million cases, which sounds a hell of a lot, but it isn't really when you think that 50 million plus died in the last pandemic, namely Spanish flu. Although we're approaching 20 million who have had COVID worldwide, we're still talking under 700,000 who have died of it. Yes, 700,000 is an awful lot, particularly if you're one of them. But in terms of a population of almost 8 billion, it really doesn't amount to a hill of beans. And it has little effect on the global death rate for the period concerned. Although Britain is still registering as the highest number of deaths per million of the major countries, i.e. those with a population of any consequence. Many of the smaller countries, San Marino and the like, have much higher rates per million, but there's hardly any of them. South Africa currently has at least half the number of cases recorded in the rest of Africa, but we have to remember that Africa is a bit of a special case since it doesn't have many hospitals, since the death rate of the people is much higher, or should I say the longevity of the people is much lower, and since there is a much lower value put on lives in Africa, because it's not very long ago, as we are having pointed out to us, only 200 odd years ago, that the blacks in Africa were selling off blacks they had taken prisoner as slaves to raise capital for Africa. And slavery is still endemic in Africa, although it's over 200 years since Britain banned slavery. It has continued in many formats in Africa. Is very common in Pakistan. If you start looking at the indentured labor of the brickworks, and you start looking at the caste system of India, we do live in a world which is quite difficult to draw direct comparisons. Yes, COVID is worrying, but it is not something that it is worth getting bent out of shape about. Take intelligent precaution for the sake of other people. Have the common courtesy to wear masks, although common courtesy seems to be very low in some sectors of the community in Britain, and militantly low in America, where they protest at rifle point. So it just continues, and there is every reason to believe it will continue for the foreseeable future. Use your common sense. Don't go near people who are coughing and spluttering. Avoid people who don't care about you enough to wear a mask. Do your shopping when there's as few people around as possible, and stay healthy. I think that's COVID done for the next few years. It'll be the same case. There will be no second spike in real terms. We've never talked on this channel of second spikes of the disease. We have an ongoing tide of coronavirus, which ebbs and flows on a regular basis right around the world. To talk in terms of spikes is, I believe, a little misleading. The pandemic is here. It's here to stay for the foreseeable future. If we are exceedingly lucky, it will mutate and stop for no explicable reason. If we are unlucky, it won't, and we will be dependent on being lucky enough to find a vaccine, which seems extremely unlikely unless you want to go down the route of Donald Trump and inject yourself full of bleach, which will definitely kill the virus. The only trouble is it will kill you too. So to move on, let us look at what's going on in other aspects on the world. The situation in China is pretty vile in that not only have they got massive floods below the three gorges and five gorges and somewhere like 14 dams in that area, which are all close to bursting point, and the flooding has been extensive, costing a number of lives and a great deal economically. We also have in China the obscenity of their government's treatment of people, particularly at the moment, the Uyghur people, who they are holding in concentration camps. Somewhere it would appear in excess of 1 million of them, where they are being moved from place to place in chains with blindfolds, where there seems to be absolutely no shortage of military-style police, quasi-military prison guards, and where they are indulging in breaking up families, removing children, separating husbands from wives in a manner that can never be restructured, and forcing new re-education of the people. It is an obscene process, but then again, the Chinese government has for many generations now been an obscene style of government. Let's not forget that in the name of culture, Mao Zedong slaughtered over 50 million of his own citizens in the Cultural Revolution, all conveniently swept under the carpet. That's an awful lot of bodies to sweep under the carpet. China is trying to re-establish a new Silk Route into Europe, and with an arm going down into Africa. And it has now, in breach of treaties, totally unethically and arbitrarily, passed laws that have turned Hong Kong from being a vibrant, happy community of great success in commercial and financial terms into really little more than an open prison, where you cannot have freedom of thought, you cannot have freedom of communication, you cannot have freedom of speech, and where they are now arresting people for trial in China for daring to make comments disrespecting China, its flag or its anthems, and disrespecting its leaders. The election in Hong Kong, Carrie Lam, as a puppet of China, has postponed the elections arbitrarily, denying the people of Hong Kong, who she is paid to represent, arbitrarily denying them the right to democracy, which China undertook to give them in an agreement with the United Kingdom when Hong Kong was handed back under the terms of that agreement. China has abrogated on its responsibility and enacted law that means that they can take Hong Kong citizens to China to be put on trial in China in their kangaroo court system and arbitrarily punished with up to life imprisonment for breaking these new police state laws they are determined to impose on Hong Kong. They have even this week, just gone, announced that there are certain ethnic Chinese around the world who they want returned to China to put on trial for having had the temerity to speak out against the new Chinese police state attitude and its denial of liberties and freedoms it has promised to grant. The world is never a comfortable place. We can always find ways to batter each other, attack each other, and make life unpleasant for each other. If only people would put as much effort into making life pleasant. The other aspect that's interesting at the moment pertaining to China is, not unwisely, although possibly for slightly different reasons than it would appear, Donald Trump has threatened that TikTok will be blocked in America. TikTok is Chinese owned and is an internet, would like to claim, social communication method, though much of what it does is more a case of being antisocial. But America's concern is in many ways correct, in that everybody who has a TikTok account has to provide a fair amount of detail, and the Chinese have access in that it is a Chinese-owned company, and there is no such thing as freedom in China. Therefore, any data that is harvested by TikTok is readily available. Whatever TikTok or China may say, it is readily available to the Chinese government, and potentially a breach to the interests of countries around the world who have TikTok members under the terms of national security, as Donald Trump's particularly fragile government has pointed out. There is a probability that TikTok will be blocked by various countries in the Western world, just the same as Huawei is being blocked. And the other thing that is becoming very apparent is that for all its blathering on about open borders and acting in the best interest of the whole of Europe with one legal system, which I remind you, it's stated in the literature, was seen as a better, stronger, fairer system across a unitary legal area. Sorry, correction, a largely unitary legal area, a better system of repression. Surprisingly, the European Union in French, Italian, German, English, and Dutch used the word repression. Those were the only ones that I checked linguistically. I presume it was repression in every other language. Now, as far as I'm concerned, isn't it a good job that we have left the European Union? Because the law is there to liberate the people, as far as I'm concerned, not to repress them. So Europe is becoming ever more shaky. Its finances are far from stable or secure. It has a black hole in its budget. It has countries like Greece and Italy and Spain and Portugal that are in dire trouble financially, and it has Germany and France as the only major contributors now that Britain has left. We were also a major donor to the European Union. Its finances are dodgy. It has no commonality of policy over the COVID problems. It has different rules in every region of the European Union for no apparent reason and no coherent explanation of those rules. One can understand different areas having different lockdown principles, liberties, with mask, without mask, etc., etc. However, nobody seems to be able to explain them one to another. So it just looks like a rather loosely controlled chaos. And increasingly, that looks like the structure of the European Union, particularly when you take into consideration the global collapse of the car market, where in Britain, new car sales are down by 40%, where in Britain, 11,000 jobs have been lost so far in the car industry. And the same is true in most European, in fact, most Western countries, where aircraft production is almost in collapse, because when you consider British Airways as just one example, they have laid up all of their 747 jumbo jets, and they will never fly again, but they will still be a net cost. Where Boeing is in trouble because nobody is buying its planes, where I believe I'm right in saying Qantas, the Australian airline, is closed down, and where numerous airlines around the world have evoked special measures in an attempt to, I believe it's called Chapter 11 equivalent, guard themselves from claims of bankruptcy. We are in flux. Europe, being somewhat disorganized, centralized in terms of a dictator committee rather than an elected government, is in particularly poor shape and may well not survive. And you will note that Merkel, in a recent speech, said the EU could well disintegrate within the next few years because of the disparity of incomes and the disparities over law enforcement. Going back to China, it was a Chinese proverb that said, "May you live in interesting times." It's getting a little too interesting just at the moment. I wish you all well on that note. Stay healthy, seek to achieve staying healthy with common sense, consider other people and wear a mask, and where possible, do not mix in large crowds. Good luck.
Greg, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
My pleasure, and good luck one and all.
We hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if so, kindly subscribe to our channel and press the bell sign so that you are notified of our videos as and when they are published. And also in the description box below, we place links to certain books, articles, and programs which you may find of benefit, and for which we will receive a small commission should you purchase through our link. And this will help support our channel and to enable us to develop it further.